Hi there, and welcome to the Spiro Circle. Today's guest is Hillel Fuld, an American-Israeli business technology advisor. A lot of you are probably already familiar with Hillel. He's got a large social media following online where he talks about all things Israeli high-tech, startup nation, Zionism, but also Israel's fight with Hamas. He is a staunch supporter of Israel and never skips a beat in defending it and its actions in its ongoing war. Importantly, he's also fighting for its reputation as it struggles to gain sympathy among young people. I wanted to speak to Hillel about a bunch of things. Honestly, we could have spoken all day, but we limited it to Israel's tech sector and also the fight online fighting anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionism, which, as many of us know, is often a dog whistle for antisemitism. We spoke about some of the media personalities in the space and how they've tackled the conversation surrounding Israel. We mentioned Piers Morgan, Joe Rogan, Dave Smith, and Douglas Murray. We also spoke about Israel's tech sector and what the anti-Zionists may be missing when they think of Israel. Those calling to boycott our country simply underestimate the presence that Israel has in shaping the technology of our world. I hope you enjoy. Hillel, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Big fan.
Thanks. I wanted to start, please, by asking about how you are seeing things online from an Israel advocacy point of view. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter across social media about Israel's reputation and kind of how it's seen among users, but specifically younger users, and what they are kind of growing up with in the college campus area. You're a large, prominent figure online. How are you seeing things from your point of view?
Well, I got to admit that on October 7th, as an optimistic, cup half full kind of guy, I said to myself, if there's any silver lining here, it's that the entire world is going to stand with Israel. Now, there's no scenario in which the world doesn't stand with Israel after Hamas doing what they did, live streaming it, declaring how proud they are of it. I mean, there's no way anyone can deny it, and there's no way anyone could take their side. And well, we know how long that lasted. So on the one hand, it's shocking. It's shocking. It's appalling. It's vile. On the other hand, for the first 6 months of the war, I was like banging my head on the wall, like, how could this be? But then I realized, I gotta let go and just realize, and this isn't like a religious thing, call it whatever you want, but the one thing I think most people can agree upon is that this war is not a logical war. It's not a rational war. The fact that there are millions of people out there literally actively supporting rapists and pedophiles, let's just say it as it is unbelievable. And I mean that literally. It is hard to believe. But the reality is that social media is built from the ground up to create division and to give us the impression that everyone's, a bunch of lunatics, when in reality, that's not reflective of the real world. And I believe, without any obviously data to back this up, I believe that the vast majority of normal people in the West, whether it's in America or other places, again, despite their lack of representation on social media, I believe that the vast majority does understand that this is a war between good and evil, between Western values and radical Islamic values. And yes, there are a lot of crazy people out there, but I don't believe it's the majority. I don't even think it's close to the majority.
I mean, I can definitely tell from my point of view, from the stories that I've been reporting on over the last year and a half, it seems that a lot of the anti-Israel noise is just that, it's just noise. And when you start speaking to investors or company leaders, managers, or even those in politics, that sentiment does transcend, like the anti-Israel sentiment does transcend past the noisy crowd, and the people in the higher up levels do tend to sympathize more with Israel than certainly Hamas. I mean, what's Israel doing so wrong that you literally have a country that's having to put its reputation against, like you mentioned, the rapists, the murderers, the terrorist regimes? How is Israel getting this so wrong?
Listen, it's hard to comprehend. It's like you can't wrap your head around this. But at the end of the day, I think most people understand that Israel, let's just sum up the entire conflict for anyone listening and watching. Here's the entire conflict. There's a side that wants to live in peace and has done everything in its power to live in peace, including giving up major parts of its country, of its land, to enemies, including Gaza in 2005, which is shocking that, most people on the streets and in these protests don't even know what the disengagement is. But putting that aside, there's one side of the conflict that wants to live in peace and will do anything to live in peace. And there's another side of the conflict that wants to prevent that other side from living in peace and will do everything it can to prevent that other side from living in peace. And that is all. You are now a Middle East expert, and you know more about the conflict than most people on the streets who are yelling from the river to the sea and no idea what river and what sea they're talking about. They're yelling, globalize the Intifada. Ask them what the Intifada is. They have no idea. Furthermore, the thing that shocks me most, honestly, is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a Middle East expert to understand how contradictory and paradoxical their entire narrative is. I mean, the same people who are saying that there's no food in Gaza and that there's starvation in Gaza are the same people saying that the hostages are being fed well. The same people who are yelling to globalize the Intifada are calling for ceasefire now. The same people who are saying from the river to the sea, aka erase Israel, are the same people saying two-state solution. Like, these people contradict themselves. And if you have the intelligence level of a 3-year-old, you would see that. So if there's an adult out there who doesn't see it, it's because they don't want to see it. It is so obvious and so glaring how their entire narrative is one big contradiction from beginning to end.
You and I are very close to the conflict. I mean, we're both living in Israel. We both have a very direct experience with what's been going on here on the ground. You've been critical of some of the large voices out there that have been trying to make sense of all of the history and emotions that are involved, notably folks like Piers Morgan or Candace Owens, and most recently Joe Rogan when he had Douglas Murray on with Dave Smith. What would you say to some of those large commentators or prominent commentators who are basically trying to do the best they can, or what they think is the best they can do? What advice would you give them?
First of all, I'm going to push back on the premise. I don't think they're trying to do the best they can. I think they're trying to get clicks. That's all, right? And they know what gets clicks, then Jew hatred gets clicks. So that's what they're aiming for. That's number one. Number two, I wrote, I don't know if you saw my post yesterday. I asked, who's the bigger disappointment, right? Candace Owens, Piers Morgan. Who was the third one that I shared?
Joe Rogan.
What was it again?
It was
Joe Rogan, Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan,
and Candace,
Joe
right?
Rogan, Candace Owens. Yeah.
So, I mean, Candace Owens, you have to ask. I mean, she did a 180. There's something going on there. She was super pro-Israel. You watch the things that she said. She was super pro-Israel, and then all of a sudden something happened. There's all kinds of conspiracies. I don't know what happened, but something clearly happened, because you don't just 180 your opinions like that, number one. Number two, Piers Morgan, on a personal level, his team invited me to come on his show, and I was traveling that day, so I said I can't. And they said, all right, we'll bring on another time. And, we went back and forth on Twitter a few times, and then he blocked me. Now, to me, that's like the best indication of a person's moral compass. If he's unable to debate and he blocks someone because they have a different opinion than him, then okay, you clearly have no substance to your opinion. Otherwise we would debate, right? So Piers Morgan to me is just such a disappointment, because he likes to play this game from, not to compare too much, but there is a comparison to Qatar, right? It's like, oh, we're Mr. Peacemaker, but we're actually fueling the fire here, right? And so that's what he does. He brings on these absolute anti-Semitic lunatics, and he's giving them a stage, and it's wild. But Joe Rogan, to me, honestly, on a personal level, I'm so deeply upset and disappointed in what happened this week. Not only because he had that debate on his show, which I'm fine with, but I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you saw the next day he actually ridiculed, come on, what are you making fun of his accent? Like Douglas Murray, he's ridiculing him and saying, you've never been there, so you have no, what are you, 4 years old? It's so immature and so childish and so dumb. And, we can debate, the topic, but I think we can agree that if you're discussing a certain issue at length for years, and you've never even been there, you don't even know what's going on. You're talking about checkpoints. You have no idea. You're basing your opinion on checkpoints from the BBC. You know nothing. You've never even been there. So we can make fun of Douglas Murray till we're blue in the face. That's a very legitimate argument. You are Mr. Subject Matter Expert. You're going around talking about this conflict. You've never even stepped foot in the Middle East. It's pathetic. So they can make fun of him all they want. It's a very valid argument, and it's extremely disappointing for me on a personal level to see Joe Rogan go down to stoop to that level, because honestly, I did like him. I think it's hard for me to even know his opinions, because he's sometimes so far to the right, sometimes far to the left. I don't know, but this for me was over the line, and it was just not acceptable behavior.
Well, I think you touched on something that's really interesting, which is that you can't place his opinions, right? It's sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right. I'd argue, I'm going to push
That's the
back
point.
slightly on what you said about Piers Morgan, which was he's accused of being a Zionist shrill and a shrill for Hamas, and so he says his arguments are, well, if I'm annoying everyone, I must be doing something right. Um, so it's frustrating when it doesn't go in the corner that you like, but I would my my hope is that those in the media with large platforms like them do try to at least try and get a level playing field when it comes to this kind of debate. Maybe
Yeah,
you.
but to push back on that, this brings us back to a much more fundamental issue, which is the big equal sign, right? The world likes to. It's not only about the conflict, just moral relativism in general. It's like, no, there's no good and bad. There's just different, and no, there is good and bad in this world. And so it's true that he brings people from both sides of the conflict, but you cannot compare bringing a guy like Douglas Murray, who's an intellectual guy and who has opinions, not because he's not even Jewish, like he has his opinions and we can debate them, to bringing like blatant anti-Semites. I'm not talking about I'm talking about in general, like the people that he's brought on, blatant anti-Semites. So yeah, he's bringing people from both sides of the political aisle, but both sides of the political aisle are not equal, right? So it's like, again, to give an extreme example just to prove the point, right? Would you say that a person would bring a representative from the Allies and a representative from Nazi Germany and saying, oh, look, they're equal. He's bringing both sides. No, those two sides are not equal. There's good and there's evil in the world, and Hamas represents evil. And sad to say, but this is the reality, Hamas has overwhelming support in the Palestinian society, as shown by any poll. In fact, I would say Hamas has more support in the Palestinian society than Hitler ever had in Germany. And I'd also say that the Nazis drank themselves to sleep out of shame, and they tried to hide what they were doing. Hamas live streamed it. So I don't like to make who's better and who's worse, but the argument of like, yeah, but they killed 6 million people is irrelevant, because Hamas would gladly kill 6 million Jews if they could. So it's not like they're, righteous people that are holding back. Let's be honest. So to me, again, I don't want better or worse. They're on the same level as far as I'm concerned. So, bringing people from both sides of this argument, someone who supports Hamas is not the same as bringing someone who supports Israel. Israel is a moral country, a sovereign nation trying to do everything to achieve peace. And Hamas is a terrorist organization full of rapists, murderers, pedophiles, and animals who burn families alive. So those two things are not equal.
Yeah, we had a saying in journalism school. If one person says it's sunny outside and the other person says it's raining, you don't put both of those informations into the story. Your job is to look out the window and see what the weather
Exactly.
is.
Exactly.
I want to touch on the topic of education and touch on the US college campus situation. Obviously, that's been, I mean, a large part of my reporting in the last year and a half has basically seen American college campuses calling to globalize the Intifada and praising Hamas and really ghastly things that my parents probably never thought that they would raise children who would see things like this in their lifetime. Is there a point of no return for these schools and for Jews in them? Like what's going to happen here?
So first of all, it's important to mention just historically that it starts with academia, right? It started with academia in Europe, and this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Let's start with that. But I think it's a broader issue than the Israel Gaza conflict. I mean, you have literal TikTok trends of American youth praising Bin Laden. Like, we've gone nuts. We've gone absolutely crazy. I mean, they're glorifying murder. I mean, it's just like the whole what's his name, the insurance guy who was murdered. Like, the guy became a national hero for murdering a person on the street.
Completely.
So that like we've lost our moral compass completely, and it's terrible to see. Now, what's going to happen? I mean, you want me to give you my cup half full kind of answer, or cup or honest answer?
Well, we always strive
I,
for honesty here, but give whatever you feel is most
I'll
comfortable.
tell you that, like, the funny thing is that someone said to me, if learning from history has taught us anything, it's that we don't learn from history, right? Like, open a history book if you want to know what's about to happen. We know it's about to happen because it happened in every generation. And here's the script. There is an empire, okay? It doesn't matter if it's ancient Egypt, Rome, Greece, Soviet, Nazi, it doesn't matter. You have an empire, and the empire grows and grows until it achieves world domination and completely unparalleled power and influence. And the first thing it does is it throws morality out the window, right? You put people to fight to the death in the Colosseum for the entertainment of the emperor, right? You just completely throw morality out the window. And then when that happens, that empire says, okay, we don't want morality shoved down our throats, so let's go after the source of morality, which is the Bible. And they can't get rid of the creator of the Bible. So what do? They get rid of the messenger. They come, they kill FedEx. You don't get your package, right? So they come after us who brought the Torah to the world. And we, in every generation, like idiots, think that we could say to our hosts, hey, ancient Egypt, hey, ancient Rome, hey, we're just like you. We're fully assimilated. Why are you bringing us to the gas chambers, Germany? We're German. We're not Jewish. We're German. Who are the most liberal people in America today? It's the Jews. We think we could come to our hosts and say, we're just like you. Don't hate us. And you would think, just logically, that there would be a correlation between assimilation and inverse correlation, that the more assimilation, the less anti-Semitism. If I'm more like you, you should hate me less. But the reality is the opposite, that the more we assimilate, the more they hate us. And so as soon as that happens, the next step in that flow is that empire unfortunately falls. Now, the last thing I'd want to see is Western civilization falling, because if that happens, we know who's going to fill up that gap: radical Islam. So I'm not hoping that happens. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. America's been great to me and to my family. But if we don't reverse this trajectory and we don't deal with it, which is what Trump's trying to do right now, at least in academia, if we don't reverse this, then unfortunately history seems to be pretty clear about what happens next.
Yeah, it's definitely frightening times. I'd like to bring it home a bit more, if I can, and talk about what's happening on the ground here in Israel, not so much in the war context, but in the Startup Nation context. You and I are both quite techie people. We've got our fingers on the pulse here about what's going on. What do people what do you tell people who only know Israel through the eyes of the Gaza war? What would you tell them about Startup Nation that they may not know?
So, I mean, first of all, let's just, get this out of the way. We've all seen these internet memes of like, oh, you can't boycott Israel, but let's actually discuss that, right? Like if you wake up in the morning and you want to unlock your iPhone, that's Face ID. That was developed by PrimeSense, an Israeli company that Apple acquired. You want to take a picture on your phone, dual lens technology for phones was invented by an Israeli. You want to go to work, you can't use Waze, you can't use Google Maps because they acquired Waze. You get to work, you can't call someone over the internet because voice over IP was created. Like the list you can't use a pill cam, you can't use almost all cancer treatments. So you can't boycott Israel. So let's just start with that. You get that out of the way. Like you see the BDS people, launching websites to boycott Israel powered by Wix, an Israeli company. It's absurd. That being said, it's comical to me that an otherwise intelligent person, somehow when it comes to the Jews, when it comes to Israel, everything's out the window. No more analysis, no more doing a little due diligence and research. If the press says it, it must be true. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist because there really is only one source of casualty numbers in Gaza. There's no two sources. There's one source, the Gaza Health Ministry. The Gaza Health Ministry is run by the organization that rules Gaza, aka Hamas. If you're believing the Gaza Health Ministry, you are actively acting as the propaganda arm of Hamas. There is no other source. Now, again, if a person's, otherwise intelligent, otherwise moral, and they believe Hamas, then somehow when it comes to the Jews, all morality goes out the window. And that begs the question, why? What did the Jews ever do to you? We've only been a source of light in this world. So, I hate to bring the anti-Semitism card in, but at some point you got to say, when they act a certain way about every other topic, every other, let's call it genocide. Where is everyone on Syria? And somehow when it comes to the Jews, they have another whole standard. There's a word for that, and it's called anti-Semitism.
Definitely. I mean, I found myself certainly over the last year and a half just absolutely pulling my hair out when I'm looking at the screen, or just scrolling through, seeing some of the nonsense that I was seeing. And then when Google purchased Wiz in a historic acquisition, I think maybe last month now or a few weeks ago, I was like, I posted the same thing on X. I said, okay, for all of the anti-Zionists who want to boycott Google now, here are all of the things that you need to drop right now. And that was just Google products. That wasn't even any other major company, and the list kind of went on and on.
And to answer that question, I mean, so forget the boycott thing. Like Israel, I mean, the technology ecosystem in Israel is, I mean, to me, I call it miraculous. You call it whatever you want. It makes no sense. We're a country smaller than New Jersey in the worst neighborhood on earth. and we dominate across all sectors of technology with almost no exceptions, right? You look at capital flowing into Israel, not only is there billions and billions, I mean, I like to talk about 2020 and 2021. 2020, there were $11 billion invested in Israeli startups. In 2021, 1 year later, $26 billion were invested in Israeli startups. It's crazy. And during the war, we broke records again. So that's funding, but it's not just the quantity, it's the quality. Where's all that money coming from? The answer is there is almost no such thing as a top-tier venture capitalist in the world that has not set up shop in Israel. And even those that haven't, like Andreessen Horowitz, are actively deploying capital in Israel. So it's not just the amount of money, it's the quality of that money. And then you look at, every leading multinational, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and on and on and on. They're all not only in Israel, but building major parts of their portfolio here in Israel. And so there's that. And then you look at the exits, you look at the public companies. No matter how you want to look at this ecosystem, there's something, I don't know what to call it, something illogical happening. And again, it shows no signs of slowing down. You would think as Israel fights this existential war and has half the countries in reserve duties that we would not, maybe be able to sustain, we'd probably go down, but the opposite is true. We broke records in M&A, we broke records in funding. It's crazy to see. So that's where my faith comes in, and I believe God's in our corner, but believe whatever you want. You cannot debate the fact that Israeli tech is completely disproportionate in terms of its strength to the tiny little size of Israel and the volatile region in which we reside.
No, it's amazing. It's certainly true that necessity breeds innovation, but I think Israel takes that to a completely different level. And I've been speaking for a couple of years now about how Israel's immediate need for defense evolved to cyber, and how it became like a cybersecurity hub, and then cybersecurity evolved into defense tech. And so Israel's leading in these industries, and the industries it's leading in is in part because of the necessity that it kind of has to. Israel, I saw last week, according to LinkedIn data, Israel is number 6 in the world in terms of AI talent. And as you said, for a country the size of New Jersey, that's number 6. It's actually number 1 for women overall globally. So just extraordinary.
Send me that information. That's incredible.
Definitely, it's really, really wild. Some of the industries that Israel is leading in AI specifically is mind-boggling. What tech trends are you looking forward to in the next kind of year ahead, coming from Israel or otherwise? Just like what excites you?
So I want to just elaborate for a second on that previous point, because it's important. We just celebrated Passover, and again, I'm not here to preach religion. Believe whatever you want, but in the Torah, in the Bible, where we were in Egypt and we were persecuted and enslaved for 210 years, there's a very strange verse in the Torah. By the way, not in the commentary, not in the Torah, like in the Old Testament. There's a very strange verse. It says, I'm just translating it into English. It says, the more the Egyptians persecuted and tortured the Israelites, the more the Israelites reproduced and flourished. Again, you would think that's counterintuitive. The more they would persecute us, you wouldn't think we would be flourishing. But that's our story. That's always been our story. And that's our story today. The more they terrorize, the more we innovate. And this is backed up by real data. This isn't like an abstract, nice kumbaya thing. This is, look at the data. The more terror there is, the more innovation there is, which is crazy. To answer your question, though, I think, to me, two of the most exciting, and they're very different, but two of the most exciting fields for me, I'll say 3. First of all, transportation. Like you realize, and I realize, most people don't realize how fundamentally disrupted transportation is about to become. Like 5 years from now, we will not have steering wheels in our cars. Now, I had the opportunity to go to Professor Amnon Shashua's house, the founder of Mobileye, and I rode in the next generation autonomous car. And he lives in Mevaseret, right outside Jerusalem. We rode, and it's funny to say, I can't say drove, but we rode in this car during rush hour with Israeli drivers, by the way, and he didn't touch anything. Nothing. Fully autonomous, switching lanes, braking, accelerating, steering, fully autonomous, it blew my mind. So transportation is super duper exciting to me. The second thing is, healthcare in general, but specifically cancer, because I'm sure you've asked yourself this question. I've asked myself this question 1,000 times, and I asked an expert about this. I said, we have robotics, we have AI, we have self-driving car. Why have we not cracked cancer? Why have we? And so he said to me, Dr. Rick Klausner was the director of the National Cancer Institute. And you can watch this on YouTube. He said to me, he says, we've learned after 100 years of research how to take a person's immune system and attack his own cancer. And all of the leading cancer research and cancer treatments and cancer cures were developed in Israel. It's unbelievable. So that's really, really exciting. The thought of no one dying of cancer anymore, obviously, is extremely exciting. But if I had to name, like, if you'd ask me as a geek, like what really excites me, and it boggles my mind that there's not more regulation about this, even though I don't want there to be, which is drone technology, right? I mean, I was just up north with my family for Passover, and I'm a little bit of a droney, so I have a high-end Mavic 3 Pro, and I have a small Mini. I brought the Mavic 3 Pro. This thing, if it could fly at like 70 kilometers an hour for 15-kilometer range, like, and anybody could just walk into a store and buy it. It's wild, right? I mean, drone technology, people don't realize we're talking about a machine that fits in the palm of your hand, that has sensors, obstacle avoidance sensors in all directions, super, super high-res cameras, crazy speeds. I mean, the technology in these things is unbelievable. And, right now, obviously DJI completely owns the market, which is a little bit scary. I don't know why not many people talk about that. They talk about TikTok, they talk about Chinese cars, but drones, DJI, like, there's no one even no one's competing with them. They dominate the market. But that aside, I think drone technology is about to change everything, right? I mean, it's already, with deliveries. I don't know, people don't know this, but the guy who started the drone delivery department at Amazon is an Israeli guy named Menashe. But drones are about to deliver things. Drones are about to evacuate people in war. Drones are about to become transportation. Like, drones are going to change everything. And unfortunately, in this war, we saw a lot of use of drones in the military sense. And by the way, it's no secret that it's been one of Israel's biggest military challenges, these Kakbamim, these drones. We sent up F-16s to take out drones. Like, it's absurd. But drones are very powerful, and I think they're going to change our lives.
Wow. I know, it's definitely from some of the things that I've read and reported on, I definitely am exposed to some of that excitement that you see as well. Although I'm a bit less optimistic when it comes to self-driving cars. I always think it's a bit like kicking the can down the road. I always think we're 5 years away. But if you're telling me that you've experienced an autonomous vehicle on Israel's traffic roads, then it must have taken leaps and bounds in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was in Andreessen Horowitz, their office in Menlo Park many, many years ago, meeting with, you probably know Benedict Evans. Remember Benedict Evans? Anyway, he was a partner back then. He's like a tech analyst or whatever, one of the smartest guys. And this was, I want to say, 8 years ago maybe. And at the time he said, people think we're so close to autonomous cars. We're 10 years away. That's what he told me then. So I don't know if it's in 5 years or in 7 years, but technologically speaking, we're there basically. I mean, these cars can drive themselves, and people say, I'm sure you get this all the time. People say, I'm so scared of it. I'm so scared. Like, even right now, where it's not fully developed and fully deployed, right now, 99% of car accidents are human error. Right now, as we speak, autonomous cars are infinitely safer than human drivers. So, like, what's there to be scared about? Okay, yeah, people are going to hack your car. We have companies that are going to solve that too. So I think transportation is just super exciting. And again, I don't know if it's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, but let's agree that our grandkids are not going to have steering wheels in their cars.
Definitely. I was just getting reminded of when you and I were sitting in a cafe, and it was like November 2022, and you were the one that showed me ChatGPT for the first time. And
Really?
you said, you got to take a look at this.
Funny.
Look what this thing can do. And I saw it, and it blew my mind. But already, where ChatGPT has come in the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years, the level of change and the pace of change that is seeing, and how much better it is today than it was then. Hopefully, we're going to see something like that with autonomous vehicles, and we can see that the rate of its improvement will just get faster and faster, and that will accelerate.
Yeah, I said to someone this morning, I was looking up, I don't remember what I was looking up on ChatGPT, and it was generating the answer. And it's kind of like that spinning wheel we used to have, right? And it's like, we look at ChatGPT today and we're like, wow, it's so amazing. In 5 years from now, our kids are going to laugh at us at how slow AI was today, Like, for us, it's like mind blowing, but the truth is, like, I'll search for something and it will take like 45 seconds, which doesn't sound like such a big deal, but in 5 years from now, what we have today is going to be compared to what we had dial-up back then. Like, my kids don't even know what dial-up is. I saw a video recently. It was hysterical. Someone asked their teenage daughter certain terminology, certain words to see how much what she knew. She didn't know what dial-up was. Yellow pages, they didn't know. Rolodex, they didn't know. Like, collect calls, like crazy stuff. The world has come. We don't realize how fast. I mean, it's just yesterday when Jobs announced the iPhone, and everyone was like, who wants to type on a screen? Where's my keyboard, you know? And here we are, like, you think of BlackBerry, you laugh, but like they dominated the market like yesterday, you know? So the world is moving super duper fast, you know, Moore's law, right? And so again, whether it happens in a year and 5 years from now, it doesn't matter. Transportation is going to fundamentally change over the next decade.
I will take this opportunity to recommend the movie Blackberry if you haven't seen it already. It talks about Blackberries. It was the best movie of the year that I saw.
By the way, speaking of movies, have you watched the new, not movies, shows, but have you watched the new season of Black Mirror?
Yeah, I just finished it yesterday. It's
Oh
crazy.
my God.
Yeah.
Dude, that show, I don't know, they are such geniuses, the people who write that show. Is every episode, I'm like, it could not get better.
Yeah.
It is such an amazing, and why is it so amazing? It's so amazing because it's so close to reality. Like, almost none of the episodes, at least in this season, are impossible. Almost none of them. Most
Well,
of them
that's
can
what makes
happen.
it so scary
That,
because it all
exactly.
goes so wrong. So you think, oh, we're like 5 minutes from here. You know,
Yeah, exactly. So many of them, I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm like, she's like, that's so scary. I'm like, that could happen tomorrow. Like, there's nothing stopping that from happening from a technological perspective. It's crazy.
Yeah. Listen, Hillel, we're running out of time, unfortunately. We're going to have to put a pin in this, at least for now. But I definitely want to catch up with you again sometime in the future, and we'll give updates on all of the things we've talked about. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. We've cracked open the Pandora's box of all of the conversations that I wanted to touch on, so it was amazing.
Thank you
Final
for having
question.
me.
What are the best ways to reach you, to follow you?
I mean, I'm all over the place. Any
Yeah, great.
platform. I mean, if you want to follow where I'm most active, that would be X. But you know, you can contact me anywhere. I'm pretty responsive. And yeah, I want to say to you, you're doing great work. Keep doing what you're doing, and you're a great follow. You're great. I love reading your stuff. So keep doing that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.